warrants.
6:30 jumped right up on us, didn't it? My goodness.
It did.
And we're back, sort of.
Kind of.
Carrie is a little wiser to the world, and
I mean,
Danielle doesn't even have a handle anymore on her.
I feel like it hasn't happened before, but it just sucks when it does.
That's
just because you didn't like my new chosen username.
I didn't even know what your new chosen username was. Wait, did I? Oh, wait.
Yeah. You told me it sounded stupid.
I don't know if I'd ever say
let him shame you into changing your username.
That I would ever say.
I have had a username that references chocolate milk since I was like 18.
I can't believe I would ever say anything as stupid.
Was too long, and now I think I can pull it up. I'm gonna pull up the conversation now.
Oh, now we're just gonna do a countdown. We're just gonna do a countdown for the next hour.
We're getting. This is digital censorship.
Don't make me mute you. I will turn this car right around. Oh, look, here's Bradford checking himself out and unmuting himself.
I'm doing some work. I got work to do while y'all are talking.
You're just feeding back, though, the music. We hear it reverberating, echoing back off you.
Oh, my bad. Oh, that's because I have Logitech speakers.
I was wondering why there was like an extra beat in there.
What is happening?
Chaos. Just chaos.
We take 1 week off. Everybody's names are just askew. Bradford's just playing the stream and it's echoing back through. I mean,
I'm a criminal.
Yeah.
I mean,
Carrie is now an international criminal. I'm wearing a Whataburger inspired themed baseball cap. Because I love Whataburger, I'll just say that. I can't wait until they bust out of Texas and come north. That would be great.
They won't. So, you'll just have to come here.
Danielle, you're a little low, by the way.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Volume. Yeah.
Yes. Sorry, folks. Normally
mic check 1 2.
There we go.
Just kidding.
Sorry, folks. Normally we're much more professional than this. Obviously, but we're really not. Welcome in. It is actually for me. It's Friday night because I'm taking tomorrow off. So
awesome.
Yes, but it is Thursday night. It is 6:30 in the Central Time. It is 7:30 on the East Coast. 4:30 for Carrie. And again, if you are in England, it's 12:30 at night or in the morning. Excuse me.
Time
welcome
to buy,
in.
Time to buy Starbucks and esports event tickets.
Well, we'll let Carrie briefly share what she's alluding to. If you've been following her on Twitter, everything is
then
just
you know.
Yes. My name is James O'Hagan. I am one of our co-hosts tonight. I am the Director of Digital and Virtual Learning for the time being at the Racine Unified School District, and also the host of the Academy of Esports podcast. And to my right, we have...
I am Carrie Linden. I go by the Chalk Moju on Twitter. I'm the communications specialist for Liminal Esports, Snowbright Studio, and I run the K-12 Esports News website.
And then down here we have today...
I'm Danielle Johnson. I am a middle school technology teacher in Dallas, Texas, and I'm also the executive director for the Texas Scholastic Esports Federation.
And just over here we have...
I am Bradford Harris, coordinator of digital innovation in Houston, Texas, and director of learning for TechSav.
Yeah, and we took last week off because guess what? We all just had things going on, and it happens. It was just a perfect storm of everybody had something happening, and so...
It was a lengthy week.
It was a crazy week. I had family in, and I love my family, and Mom got to cook, and it was good, and I'm happy with that. And yeah, so we just took the time off. But it's not that things haven't been happening, but yeah, there's a lot of interesting things. I know, Danielle, you've wanted us to have a Farmcraft play around for some time. And I think
it's so fun.
Well, we're gonna definitely see if Sam Sam Anton can come on for that, but I know she's got some other things that she wanted to discuss as well too. But I've got a couple of students who are involved in FarmCraft. They had some issues last week uploading videos for the projects, but I reached out to Sam at NASEF and I said, look, if I get the video shared to you in some other way, would that be okay? That's the nice thing about this is, yes, it's a competition, but it's also for students, and we realize that not everything's going to be perfect using Flipgrid or whatever it is that they're using for uploads. What have your thoughts been on this, Danielle?
So my students aren't competing, but we have just been playing it. And
that's the great thing too. Fun. You can do that.
Yes.
That's the other part of this.
I have had like a student that, she and I haven't really like connected, but we're also like still distanced. Right. And she's like super quiet. And one day I was like, does anybody want to figure this out with me? And so she and I like tackled the tropical biome. And it was super fun because it takes about 45 minutes, which is like class time. Mm-hmm. And I've done it with my homeroom, and I've done it with one of my other classes when we were done with something early. It was probably a day that I was like, y'all just want to not do work and play. Mm-hmm. I've been doing that a lot more lately.
I salute you for that because
it's super fun.
Well,
I told a parent yesterday her child has a 0 in my class, a 0, which is very, very difficult. And I told her mom yesterday, I was like, she's failing all of her classes. Like, I'm going to make her do the work. Like, not a chance. She's going to get a 70. Just don't tell her that.
But let me ask you this.
Cool.
Because it's hard to, it's one of these things that, I am not about one to start busting out about microaggressions, white male over here, because I say things all the time that probably come up as microaggressions to people. But we have to, again, be careful how we say. You said something about work versus play. And, to me, when I hear we're not going to work today, we're going to play, I think is that what you said? I just want to
but that's not how I framed it with the kids. Like, so much of what I assign in class is play. And it's just make a video at the end. The kids are done. Like, the students that are high achieving, good grades, like, they're slipping. Like, we've had a couple of losses this year, including like our 6th graders. We lost a 6th grader in the fall, and we lost a 6th grade teacher last week.
Oh my God, yeah.
Like, we've just had a year on
You don't
top
mean
of,
lost a teacher like the teacher quit. You lost a teacher like you lost a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He was our chess team and club sponsor, it was like 75 kids. And like, we wiped the floor with everybody for second, third every time they played. Chess is like pervasive at our school. So I see it on the screens and I'm like, hey, you want to play me? I can't beat the students at all. But we've just had a year. And so we do a lot of things that are just like playtime.
Well, playtime, but we'll call it the work of child. You do the work of childhood. It is the work
of childhood. And that's, and we talk about like social emotional health so much. But the amount of pressure and stress that some of these kids are under, like, they get so underwater that there's no hope of like fixing a grade or like whatever. So they're under so much, and that's not healthy by itself. Like, if I could call the school year like right now, I totally would. They're just done.
Oh, but we got summer school.
2 weeks ago, kids had STAR. And so we had all of our 7th graders, the remote, the in-person, the everybody. We like had to have other people be asynchronous. The program didn't work for the whole state. Like, what a joke. But anyway, so it's just, I don't care about their grades right now. I just want them to have something to look forward to at school.
And, I carry your sentiments as well about I wish we could just call it right now. In fact, I had a 2nd grader who finished up, because we're asynchronous, finished up everything. and that we asked this student to do for the year, which I love. I mean, it's middle of April, end of April, and she's done. And one thing that I didn't like, and I guess this is where you kind of have to fit a traditional model with what we're trying to do now through virtual learning, and why it's important that we don't say seat time is a report requirement for virtual. Because I had a social worker reach out and said, well, we noticed your child hasn't been on. This was not to my knowledge. And started to say, like, well, you can't be done. And it's like, okay, granted, I love this social worker. She's great. She works with me. I have a problem. She can nail it like that. She can get kids back for me who are falling between the cracks. But I had to say to her, like, look, we work in a very different way. I have some students in our virtual program who finish up in mid-May, and because they finished everything. Sometimes there's not enough time to give them another course to complete, or they work their tails off because they want to have an early summer, or they have other things going on. These are the things that make teachers uncomfortable. There's state laws that you have to deal with, of course, because we are funded. A lot of us are funded on seat time. And if you don't get those minimum minutes, and if you don't get those minimum hours and whatever, you're going to lose federal funding, state funding. But we have to, and I know we're not going to immediately, because damn it, there's still some people who are just happy to get back to quote unquote the way it was. World, guess what? We have had an upheaval unlike we haven't seen since World War II. This is not going to be next year we go back and everything is back to the way it was.
And we're not done. I mean, like, I feel like having conversations with my son, who's like, I want to have friends over, and like I'm halfway through the vaccination, and our area is now in like the orange zone, which means that more things are opening up. But I'm like, yeah, but all my friends in Ontario are looking at like a 6-week lockdown, and people aren't being able to get vaccinations, and you've got hospitals at capacity, and then you've got the news rolling out of India. It's like we're not done. And then you've got the whole new variants that are popping up that are hitting the youth extra hard. Like, we're not done. And normal is potentially still very far away. It's just going to be, riding through and see what happens. I think we all have to be ready to like shut back down. I'm definitely hesitant about the fact that like my kid has been, I know Angelique's not here right now, but she's gearing up for their school site potentially going back like full time 4 days a week. My son's school site has been full time 4 days a week for a month now.
But I wouldn't give for 4 days a week though, man.
Wow, yeah.
Holy that Wednesday's cow. Nice. That Wednesday's like, it's pretty prime because it's weird, and I think we got to think about how like shattered this year is. Like even being like, well, it's back to normal. It's not. My son has a mid-morning start time, so smack in the middle of my workday, I'm having to log out of my office to take him to school. He's got to get tested for COVID 2 times a week, but that happens at the crack of dawn in the morning. So like I've got to get him to
he has
school.
To get tested 3 times a week for COVID?
2.
Oh.
2. Yeah, he gets tested on Monday and Friday because he plays sports. So everyone who plays sports.
That is what has shut our schools down or sent the most kids home has been athletics. Our entire soccer team is quarantined right now.
Yeah, as soon as one person gets it, the whole team gets put on a 2-week lockdown. We were supposed to have a game on Tuesday, and the competing team had been quarantined like the day before. So it's wild, but it also means for me as a parent, there's some days I am going to his school 5 times during the day because of the things that are happening on campus between testing and like actual drop off. And it just being at weird times, because it's not like you just drop off in the morning and pick up in the afternoon. Nobody's schedule's like that. Like half the school starts at 8. Some of them start at 7, like depending whether you've got your 0 period. Like the whole year's just.
Well, Bradford, we love our Marvel stuff, and I know you've been watching Falcon and Winter Soldier, which is so good. But when I say we are going to feel the effects of this, much like how the world was changed and felt the ripple effects post World War II by something that is this much as upheaval. If you're not watching that show, it delves into just how different the world is after they call it the blip. You know, when Thanos snapped his fingers, but then when everybody came back. And
that's exactly what this is. My kids and I discuss this all the time. This is our blip. No, we're not back 5 years older, but it is a blip. And I always say this, and as you and Danielle and Carrie are talking, I always say it, and I'm bold to say it. I'm so glad that I will in 2 months no longer be a K-12 parent, because I don't know how I could deal with this another year. When my son walks across the stage and gets his diploma, I feel like I'm going to be walking across with him, because this is
because you're going to be going to college.
You know, he's not even going. Well,
no, you're going to be going to college, so you're going to be walking across that stage right into school.
Going, but for me, when I see teachers just doing just the normal, and they say, "Oh, we're just going back to normal. We're just going back to normal." They're going into rooms having sessions. I'm like, this is not what this is. And even in our ed tech space, people are. I get that you're tired of meeting in this Twitch space, Google Meet space, Zoom space. I understand that, and you're so anxious to get back, but there's not even a plan for what does this even look like. I even asked my director, I said, is there a plan for when we do get back for people to stand up and say, hey, you know what? If my principal or if my director or if my superintendent or whoever wants to meet for a workshop, do I have the right to say no because I still feel uncomfortable meeting? I don't care if you have this 2 shots, 1 shots or not. I still feel uncomfortable. I don't know if that's written in anybody's handbook or not. I know Danielle is really good about saying, "Oh yeah, there's the policy here and there like that." I know she can spout that off real quick, but like I'm always questioning who is going to stand up and say, "You know what? I'm uncomfortable still meeting face to face, and it's my right to say no. I don't want to do this. What's the virtual option?" I know that you still have your shots or whatever, but as it's my right to say, you know what, I don't need to be in your meeting. I don't need to be in this classroom. I still feel uncomfortable. I need this option. And I'm not saying that has to be by law. I'm just saying.
I'm going to tell you that administrators are not ready for both at the same time.
They're not.
We had this situation where one of my coworkers does not want to be around other people, even though we were very distanced in the same room. And my principal was like, you need to be on the call with him so you can talk to him because he's in my department. Instead of the principal like doing that with him, but the principal left the Zoom on with his mic on. And so I couldn't even talk to my person. And then I made a joke about it. And my principal found out and got mad at me. But that's whatever, because he's being a dick right now. But
I love when that
they're
happens.
not ready. Like they can do online and they can do in person. But try to do both with an administrator, they can't do it.
How about this? The issue that I've got right now is, okay, look, we've proven there are certain staff members, let's not say teachers, but support staff in district who don't necessarily need to occupy a space at our offices, right? Oh. I have one person right now in my department who I am advocating for heavily, who got a letter from a doctor saying this person needs to work from home until July. They gave a date because this person is dealing with a chronic issue. Mm-hmm. And I got back a blanket response, boilerplate response from the human resources person that said we are not allowing other people to work from home. And all I could think is why?
But see, this is the funny thing is, as somebody who has spent my entire life with chronic health issues, when COVID happened, like the disability community exploded across social media because all of a sudden, like everybody was allowed to work hybrid, everybody was allowed to work from home, everybody was giving these accommodations that people were like, we've been needing these for decades. And it's like, oh, well, I can still be productive at my house and I can still get my job done. And look, I don't have to be in the work office. And it was like, hey, Like we've literally been asking for these accommodations forever, and no, it wasn't possible. It's going to be disruptive to the business. It's not going to work. And all of a sudden we've discovered that, guess what?
It does work.
It works. And in some cases it works really great. Like, you know, I have been so much healthier working at home. Just even with, I mean, granted, you know, masks and all that, I get that. But for somebody with chronic health issues, I can feel the difference between like the cold and my particular autoimmune disorder. My autoimmune disorder has not flared up anywhere close to what it normally does when I work offsite, when I work someplace else. So that has been really great for me. And then the other thing is, like with my son's school, when it was hybrid, if something came up in our lives here, it was easy to email the teachers and say, hey, he's going to be in class in Zoom today because I've got a presentation I'm giving at a university in Florida, and I can't take him to school at this time. Like, it's a weird time. And it wasn't a problem. So, you know, on those days where we had conflicting schedules, he was still able to attend school. I was still able to be at work full time, and everything worked. And I'm definitely afraid that as soon as people are back, you're going to have a lot of businesses, and especially a lot of schools, sort of be like, oh, nope, okay, it's business as usual. And I think we can't go back to that. And we can't go back to that for a few reasons. One, we can't go back to that because the large portion of disabled workforce has finally been able to show you that they can work.
Mm-hmm.
Why take that away from them when you've just given it to them? Like, granted, you didn't give it to them. You gave it to all the able-bodied people that suddenly couldn't be at work because the government said so. But we know it's possible. We know in a lot of cases it works really effectively. But find a way to work it in. Like, find a way to work it in.
Hey, I'll tell you this. So the reason why this staff member has to come in is because she literally has to punch a clock on site or she doesn't get paid. I have another staff member who has a wife who is recovering from a major surgery, who I have said, and if my HR department wants to pull this video or somebody wants to report me and say James has somebody working from home, guess what? Go ahead and do it. I'll fight that fight very publicly. But he is because he doesn't have to punch the clock, and he is home taking care of his wife and doing his job.
But
and
can they not use any of the digital time tracking systems? Like, we have a digital.
They won't allow them to. That's the silly thing. They could. They choose not to.
Well, that's the thing. You're talking about the digital time cards, and they won't allow. I think there's an ignorance there too, and a lot of us in this digital space are have a logistical mindset. So a lot of the educators, staff members who aren't in that space don't know what they don't know. So they're used to that old method of you need to come in and punch in. Well, no, let me show you a different way to do it. Well, how do we know that they're working? Okay, well, let's discuss that. What are those
because stuff's getting done in my office, for God's sake.
How do we know if they're working?
Well, they're asking.
How do I know if my students are working?
I literally just got off the phone with my program director friend, and she was talking about how students weren't coming to school, and she said at one of the campuses they had ordered food, I guess Grubhub or whatever, and a student walks up from like Grubhub. And they said, wait a minute, why are you not in school? I got to support my family. And I said, and I was like, well, that's what's up. I said, first off, what they should have said was, I am in class.
Here's your tip is what they should have said.
I am in class right now. Here's your tip. Right now, I'm talking to a teacher right now. Have a great day. That's how this world is working right now. And they don't understand who to talk to and how to and what the protocols are. Sure. Making protocols and procedures is hard. Danielle, you and I both know this because we sit as we're planning events and stuff. We're like, oh my God, everybody in this call knows. We're pulling our hair out trying to figure out how to run events, how to do those things. There are people who flat out just don't want to pull out a rule book and say they must follow these things. It's easier to say, you know what? Let's just bring them all back and just put the old rules in place. But if you sit down
there's just so many other ways to do it. I mean, my office is in Discord. I get up at 5 a.m. I pop into a chat and I'm there. I know I'm weird. I get it. I get, you don't need to give me the eyes of like, but like we're there, and we're in a voice chat. We're muted, but like if I need something, I can unmute and start singing at somebody. Like we don't have to sit and stare at each other. We have our stand-up meetings. We have our creative meetings. We have our team meetings. Like we're all in a digital space, and I don't have to be sitting right here for it. If I have to go somewhere and I have to sit and wait for my kid, my office is on my phone. Like it's right in here. I can still make meetings through chats. I can still have access to Google Drive. I can be in my documents working. Like I don't have to be in an office to do the job I have.
Well,
that was the problem. The problem is that, from what I've been told, teachers were breaking those rules. They were doing what you were saying, Carrie, and they were getting those second jobs. They were on their phone, and this goes back to James. They want that seat time. You're in the online space. It doesn't matter anymore. So you're trying to mesh something old with something that's productive and works. So you have to
turn something in. They're present.
But that's not what they see. They want dollars and cents. If Danielle Johnson is not in that seat at 8 o'clock, from 12 o'clock, and then from 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock, I'm not making that money.
No, I mean, my kid during the whole Zoom half would be like, he'd come in and be like, well, we had our assignment. I got it done in the first 10 minutes. And it's like, well, now he's got 45 minutes of class left. Like, what are you doing? He's like, well, I'm playing Apex or, Valorant. Like, because there's literally nothing. Like, shove them off into a breakout room. They have to have them there. But he's like, yeah, my work's done. It's turned in. We don't all work at the same pace. Like I can be a very quick worker and be done with my tasks and be like, okay, I'm done. I can be doing something else right now. Students are the same way. Some kids are going to take that entire class time, so that seat time is really relevant for them, and others aren't, and they're going to be done, and then they're just going to be sitting there like, I'm dying.
Well, and let's think about this too. I mean, let's say a kid is bedridden. We make accommodations. We make accommodations for that kid, whether it's send home the work or, let's think pre-pandemic. We would send home the work. We'd have a teacher come visit your house and work with you for however many hours or whatever that was needed. Why won't we do that for our staff if we can?
We should be.
We should be. And, this goes back to, I'm tired of hearing, and I forgot who tweeted this out, but damn, I want to find it. It was something to the effect of, why are we talking about teachers surviving? We're never talking about the thriving. Because
we don't. Because
we have this mindset like we're supposed to just make it through to the end and count the days and barely make it through and
they're trying to rope people
out.
into doing an entire full summer's worth of summer school. Like the whole we've talked about it so many times, that mentality that the
I told
teacher,
them summer school was going to cost them $10K if they wanted to be there.
Teachers are supposed to sacrifice.
Line.
Like we pay to kit out our classrooms because our classrooms usually just come with textbooks. That's generally what we're provided. Everything else is out of our pocket. Our lesson plans are often out of our pocket. Like it's just, that's just what teachers do, right? Like
I have an interesting thing that has come out of this hybrid situation. And by the way, I heard the word high flex today for the first time.
Oh yeah.
What's high flex?
I want to vomit, but that's okay because I don't think, whatever. I think it's a good option, but this is not it. But we have not had a single out of placement day for a single student this whole year.
What do you mean?
Not a suspension.
Not
an ISS. And that's even with the in-person kids. And we are unique in our school district for having that because we first came up with an entirely new system where we don't write referrals. But also because instead of like one of my students got in a tussle, right? And that's a 3-day automatic suspension. And so the vice principal was, the parents was like, you keep them for 3 days. I'm not gonna fill it in. And so they were able to attend school while they were suspended, so they didn't lose class time. And then same thing for our students with special education supports. you can only have 10 days maximum out of placement and before it's in violation.
Right.
And that's a big issue because a lot of disabilities come with some behavior struggles too, and not necessarily like one causes the other, but they're like symbiotic in that way.
And that's what you're supposed to call like a manifestation meeting or whatever it is.
Yeah,
did the
manifestation
disability
determination.
Yeah.
But even just like ADHD can cause you to be super annoying and make some stupid decisions at school, you know? But we've not had a single out of placement for our kids. And like our school's majority Black. Like that is like, we still even have a disproportionate amount and we're pretty progressive. Like we are, but we haven't had a single one this year because.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, what you're getting to is interesting because, you know, talk to our friend Ken Shelton, and he will argue that a lot of the things that we're trying to do in schools, like, you know, what was it, Roblox one week and TikTok the next was the future of education, and this is the future of education, and
I thought laser discs were the future of education.
Well,
I mean,
and as Ken gets to, as Ken will rail about appropriately, is that we are putting on all these different tools and things, and nothing is going to revolutionize education until we break down the systemic racism within the system. And what you're talking about, especially when you're talking about a majority Black school, is taking these rules that punished boys for acting out, for boys for being loud, for boys, you know, forcing boys mostly to be medicated, especially African American males, the disproportionate number of African American males who are given special ed as an option, not as an option, as like basically a forced plan. You know, what you're talking about is at least a beginning talking point to breaking down, as you said, a lot of the system that was in place that marginalized. Even hearing stories about some of the kids in our own community who are able to connect virtually because and are getting something out of this year because they don't have the constant pressure to sit there and behave. Yeah. Or sit there under the gaze of a, let's face it, white female teacher who is going to second guess. I mean, some of us have left marriages for less, you know, at least I have, of living under this constant, like, thumb on you kind of thing and walking on eggshells. And you're mentally exhausted at the end of the day. And these kids are not as mentally exhausted as they were in the past.
There was actually a day 2 weeks ago, my son had a really bad day at school one day. So he came to work with me the next day and did virtual school. And then the same thing, one of my coworkers today, I went into his room to help him with something, and his daughter was in there, and she had just had a bad day yesterday. And so she needed a break. And so she was doing virtual school from his classroom. It gives us some flexibility. I don't think it's a model to teach after, but I think like, if you got a kid that's, you know, in ISS, like they can watch class even if it's not all the interaction.
Well, I think it also it saved a lot of kids from the transition time. Like I know at the site that I used to work at, heaven forbid you were a Black or brown boy and you had any kind of learning loss because you were just immediately written off. And oftentimes, like when I got these kids, they were ridiculously smart, but what they were dealing with in their classroom just completely broke down their sense of self and their desire to learn. And a lot of that happened in transitions. Like, you know, you get to a point where you're like, okay, I have trouble with learning loss, which means you start to put up the effective barriers, and you start to sort of like compensate or deflect. And then that can get out of hand, you know, in these transition periods. And when you have the ability to be in school digitally, those transition periods are sort of gone, and you're generally not sitting with somebody for 6 hours a day. You get more of a condensed version. So, and you're like one blip on a screen. So all of a sudden, these kids have the ability to actually access. The door's not being closed on them quite as loudly or thoroughly by the teacher.
Yes.
Like they still have the ability, they still have the ability to pull the information out instead of being like shut out of the room, which is what happens in the physical school space. Go, like leave, go to the office, go sit outside the door. and like we prevent them from having that learning space, and in this digital area, those kids don't have that sort of it's not even a disciplinary thing. It's just failure to put aside your own bias.
Yeah, I remember actually, James, you and Ken had that conversation via Twitter. I forget what that conversation was, and I jumped in that tag in response. I don't know if you started the conversation with an article about this, or it was Ken that started it. It was one of the two, and I said, this is supporting my theory, because I've always believed when this pandemic happened that because of what's been going on, I believe our Black and brown children, a majority of them, are thriving in this space, and it is scaring education because they don't know what to do with that. And I said that's why there's been such a rush for everybody to get back, because they want to
get everybody back in their place.
Yes, absolutely. And what I have been bothered with these past couple months is, and this is my own personal rant, is now you starting to see like the valedictorians being posted. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why it bothers me so much. And I started to talk to my son about it. My son is not the valedictorian or anything like that, but I'm like, it really starts to disgust me when I don't see a lot of our Black and brown male and females not in that position. I'm like, why don't I see that? It's really starting to piss me off. I don't see that support that's needed. And I feel like in this space, a lot of our Black and brown children are thriving really well. And some people in education don't know what to do with that. That child, that boy, I'm speaking for our Black boys, that they labeled as the troublemaker or the sped person, all of a sudden, now wait a minute, they may be doing really well. Is that the parent that's doing that? No, we need to figure this out real quick, because all of a sudden the year before they were making low grades, but now they're doing great. No. Have that conversation, build that relationship with the kid. Maybe they actually like being in that space.
It
By the way, Carrie, it's almost. I know you've.
I gotta go.
So Carrie's got to get this last point in.
It used to break my heart, because when I did RTI and I had everybody's kids on campus, how many kids would come to me, especially how many boys from Central South American origin. So we've got brown kids. And how many people, the teachers would pull me aside and be like, hey, okay, so this kid has behavior issues and they're reading at like a first grade level. And I would get them, and they would be the best reader in the group. They would have behavior issues, but once you formed the connection, all of a sudden they're like your top student. It's like, okay, so here's the issue. They walked into your class and you wrote them off, and you writing them off meant that they didn't try because there was no point. You actually have an extremely gifted reader. You have a really critical thinker. You've got somebody who is absolutely capable to go above and beyond their grade level, but you're not letting them do it. And I would get so much pushback. And it's like, well, because you're letting them read this. And I'm like, they can read it. They comprehend it. They can answer questions about it. They can analyze it. It really doesn't matter what the text is. It's at grade level or above. Just because it's not your book, like it's still valid. They're still capable. You need to let them do it. And yeah, I gotta go avoid COVID.
All right, Carrie, thanks so much. But I want to follow up on your comment that you just shared too, because I think it's an important one. But Carrie Linden, thank you for being here this week. Oh, have fun with was it basketball, baseball?
Yeah, it's basketball. Yeah.
Go team.
Yay!
Yay sports. All right, thanks, Carrie. But to follow up on her comment too, this week, last couple of weeks, we started to have students who we've only worked with virtually all year coming into our office spaces to get additional supports from teachers. And I think it's so valuable that what we need to think about too in these spaces isn't just as Danielle, I think you were talking about this earlier. Either it's virtual or it's face to face, right? Or it's remote. It is. We have to think of our spaces. I think college probably has, even though a lot of people don't think of K-12 as having, any relation really to a college model. Think of the college model though of you go to your lecture, you have your recitation class, which is usually your breakout class where you do some additional work. And then there's office hours with a professor or a TA. And what we've been finding again is, this is the way our elementary program is working. Morning meeting, students know their work that they need to accomplish through the day, and those things are slightly reviewed. And then we have students coming in throughout the day to get one-on-one support from teachers. And what I've really seen too is, especially I have one student, he is not my student, but I know him because I've been playing in the Among Us world. I'm apparently a rock star. Whenever the kids say, "Oh, Mr. O'Hagan's here for Among Us," I'm like the rock star. I don't know why, but these kids like me.
Famous.
Yes,
you
I'm
don't
famous.
immediately get murdered. That is what happens to me.
They go after me. They find me and they shank me first. I never get to finish a game.
Wow.
No, same in Minecraft. I get set on fire immediately.
But here's the thing is that there are a couple of kids I know when I looked at their record, behavioral issues, sent out of class, all these things. And this one in particular who we've had this year, even when we were playing Among Us, was just hyper. He was excited. He was just so enjoying being there. And it took us that time to develop that relationship. And now first of all, the funny thing was when he first saw me, I got to say to him, like, "Boy, I'm a lot taller than you thought, huh?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like a little second grader and jumps up and gives me a high five. And then we had to wash our hands. But again, I'm seeing it in here as well too. The rapport, the getting to know these kids in spaces where they feel safe. They don't feel like the thumb is on top of them. They don't feel like they have to, if they're acting like a fool, you don't kick them out of class and send them to the office. You mute them for a little bit, or you're able to digitally pull them aside and redirect. And maybe that's just a bad day or whatever. I know we've been on this before. I don't even think we've talked about, I think this is the first mention of gaming. What? Oh boy. Something. Okay.
I want you to
this is the James Bradford show now.
All right.
But it is, and I'm thinking about when, Mike Dolly I know is here in chat, and one of the rules that we set up very early was that all competition had to be done live in front of a person.
Yeah.
And when we're talking about esports and gaming, is our goal, I know that again it's competitive, and we have to think about the competitive side of things and that we want to have integrity in our matches and our games. But really, does it matter? Does it matter that we have those rules about us competing in a site? I think it's important to. I really do. But I also recognize, for example, one of the rules we wrote into our bylaws was, for example, we had students who would be participating from iForward, which is one of the state charter virtual schools. Mm-hmm. And we said, if you're a part of a charter virtual school or virtual program, you don't have to compete on, because you could be anywhere in the state.
Right.
I think we need to, again, is we're meeting students where they are. And again, as the world has changed to a level that we're going to see like post World War II, this is going to be, the effects of this pandemic are going to be felt 10, 20, 30 years, just like 9/11 impacted our world. Now we're 20 years later. Can you believe that? It's been 20 years since 9/11. And we're still feeling the effects of that change even today. We're going to feel this, and I think as we're thinking about competition, as we're thinking about student engagement in our spaces, this is going to be a key one, definitely. As we think about our gaming experiences.
And the crazy thing is, and speaking for my own kid, you just said something because I don't want to forget it. That my daughter was born on a crazy pandemic during that 9/11 time, and when she was about to graduate, the pandemic hit. So like the minute she was about to be born, there was a pandemic. She's not 18, 19. She ends her K-12 career on a pandemic. And that blows my mind. And has education changed since then? And we had this discussion in my teaching learning group, and I said, no, it has not. It hasn't. My daughter started in a pandemic. Isn't that wild? She started in a pandemic, and she ended her K-12 career in a pandemic. And nothing, for the most part, in education has changed. Esports, we have that opportunity to show that we can make changes. We can be in a virtual space. We can be in a physical space. We can be cost effective. We can bring everyone to the table. We can make our own rules. Yes, we know that there's a cost. There's a consequence to making our own rules, but we are that model to say, hey, we don't have to play by these rules that are already set. We're bringing everyone in the table, and everyone can literally have a voice in this. I don't know what the word I'm looking for. In this ecosystem, whether you're in a pandemic or not. So it just blew my mind when you were talking about that. And I'm like, wow, my children were born in a pandemic and are leaving school out of a pandemic.
That's really interesting, though. We've had 20 years, which means, again, we've had kids who've grown up in that post 9/11 world. And damn, you're right. We didn't change. Well, it wasn't really anything that required a change of the educational system. I just hope that 20 years from now, so what, we're talking 2041. 2041 is equal distant to basically around 9/11 from here where we are
That's
today.
That's so scary.
Doesn't that freak you out? I'm going to be 66 years old at that point. Damn, I'll be retiring. No, I'm never going to retire. I'm going to die at my desk. But I would like to think that in 20 years, let's going back from 2001 when basically I started teaching. It's not that hasn't changed. I would like to think now we're going to see some dramatic shifts. I don't think that we will, unfortunately, in most places. You'll see it in school districts. You'll see it maybe in schools. But I don't have hope, knowing what I know about how the system operates. Unless we tear down the systemic racist policies that are embedded in our system, we're not going to see anything other than the medium maybe change, but not the way education works.
To me, it takes a crisis to push something forward, and it shouldn't have to take a crisis to push something forward. So hopefully when we all come back, we need to have those critical conversations of, do we need to depend on a crisis to move us forward, to get us to start thinking about how we teach, how we start thinking about, social justice and et cetera, or do we start being proactive in the way we do things differently now before any type of pandemic comes? It could be something that is a disease, or it could be a flood or whatever, but we don't need to depend on a pandemic to start making social change. We should be doing that on a daily basis. Danielle, you're quiet.
Well, I was muted, but also that goes back to it shouldn't take a videoed killing of a man to change how we work. We shouldn't need video. We should trust witnesses, but whatever.
We had Rodney King video and nothing changed, right? I mean, we had video. Go back to 1992.
But we didn't have multiple angles in social media where it could spread the way it did, and how the narrative, but it's also the accumulation and just the constant. Constant.
I'm not saying give up the fight. I'm just thinking again. 1992, we had Rodney King video. The man was on the ground. The man was getting tasered. The man was getting beaten, and none of those guys got convicted, and shit didn't change.
I still think with all this happening, we were with the pandemic. We were so narrow. We were now narrow focused to one thing. We had an election to deal with. We had a pandemic to deal with, and we had George Floyd and other things to do. It was like 1, 2, 3. And people tried so hard to say, look over here, look over here. No, we're looking over here. And now, if you notice, as we're slowly coming out, people are trying to steer our focus to other things. And we're trying really hard to say, no, we still need to look at what's going on here. But that pandemic has really taught us to stay focused on the task at hand. These things are wrong. We need to look at these things. So even with the results of George Floyd, I believe what happened was we're still looking at what happened. You can't take back what happened in that incident. It's all documented, not because of people with the phones. You can literally just type in the search engine George Floyd and a whole bunch of stuff goes up. You don't have to even try. So it's there. It's evident. It's wrong. So now I think society is trying to figure out, how do we steer people away from not being focused on 1 to 2 topics anymore? And
and I'm not saying this to be a downer. I'm really
not. I get it.
I'm trying to because guess what we still got? We still got Jacob Blake and Kyle Rittenhouse.
Yeah.
And you don't think that if Kyle Rittenhouse isn't convicted, or that's not gonna, or if the cop gets off with Jacob Blake, that's not gonna, it's so. Man, like I said, just like with education, I'd like to think that we got to tear down the system. And we don't have the will, or we don't have enough people to say, again, there was a great tweet I saw. Somebody wrote out, from the ages 5 to 18, we were told every day we had to stand up and end with the words liberty and justice for all. And yet we can't seem to handle the liberty and justice for all part, even though we pledge to that every single day in our schools, with the Pledge to Allegiance, Pledge of Allegiance, sorry. And I know, again, we're not going off on, there was a lot of esports stuff I really wanted to talk about tonight.
Esports, EDU.
Yeah. Well, we got the EDU part tonight. We got the social, we're talking about some deep stuff. We are getting close to the end, though, and I don't want to try to derail this too much, but gosh, there was something that's really cool, and I want to leave this out here just because I want to start with this maybe next week, unless we have some other stuff go sideways. Let me just see if I can show this. Oh, I can't. Because I thought this is something that I really wanted to talk about, and I think it is important to talk about, and I think it's important to highlight. I got to pull up another tab, though, because I'm using a different browser. This right here.
Oh my gosh. I actually reached out to the executive that did this.
So wait, for people who are listening, this is Tampax enters esports arena with first ever Tampax Gaming Fest.
Yes. Because, and I was also thinking they need to make the boxes prettier so you can put them out. But that's my pitch when I get to meet her. But yeah, I am over the moon about this because this should never be a taboo topic. And if talking about menstruation bothers you, then that's your problem. So yeah, but also because the more we talk about it, there are millions of girls that don't get to go to school because they don't have feminine products. And so they literally can't go because you can't. So
you mean their schools just won't let them connect remotely?
I mean,
ooh, see how we connected it back earlier?
Yeah. I have a feeling that the areas of the world I'm talking about
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Have some bigger issues going on. But also, they're effing expensive. I don't know if you've ever priced it out per month.
I've
but
bought
it's
them for my
expensive
daughters.
and it's taxed. But this is good. And I am so happy about it. And that's a brilliant move, not just marketing wise, because half of gamers are girls, but also just putting this in a space that is so very male. It was like a breath, guys, a breath.
And that's, I think I put this in our Discord about, okay, so everybody who was talking or was participating in it was female.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to think of
It's a start.
but you know, I think to destigmatize the conversation, which I think is important, it's important to have, again, your allies and to invite men to participate in this event, even not saying like have, you know, an entire team of all guys or whatever, but one or two really select men to participate in the event, you know, fathers who, again, are, you know, I've got 2 girls, and, you know, I have to have these conversations with my daughters.
Let
and
us have the first one.
No, I'm saying I'm good with it. I'm saying like I'm not. No, please don't start to do this. No, I'm not saying that.
Yeah,
I'm not saying like yeah, let's get all the guys.
There
in.
is a place for that, but I also think just like every normal sporting event should also be sponsored by Tampax. I think the Dallas Cowboys should be sponsored by Tampax. Like that, they just. I think there's been such a stigma about being in more traditionally male places, which aren't really traditionally male because only the people on the field are male. Mm-hmm. That companies haven't gone there. And I think that this is a really good move in like empowering, like, especially like girls to be able to talk about periods. Mm-hmm. Because that is such a stigmatized thing that like schools don't even call it like going to the nurse to get a pad. It's like going to the nurse to get a marshmallow.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah, there was the NPR Student Podcast Challenge. The winners last year were a group of 8th grade girls that made a podcast called, I think it was called Period, or it was called something. It was called something, but this was they interviewed girls at their school about how menstruation was so stigmatized because their school actually calls them marshmallows. But yeah, so this is, yeah.
I see this model.
I'm very stoked about this. I think it's such the right move.
I agree. And like I said, I would, just because, again, I want to make sure that as we start to break down the stigma, and again, it's important to, because again, as you said, most events are male dominated, right? They're male driven. And there are a smattering of women that usually come into it. I would like to eventually, because I think that men need to be a part of the destigmatization, not just the support, but inviting, like I said, a few choice select people to do this. Now, I'm thinking in my head, this is a great model. This would be great to do for condoms, but you know, guys would screw this up. I'm sorry, guys. We would be idiots.
Yeah,
about
we would.
Like a Trojan esports event to promote safe sex, and there'd just be doctor. I bet you Dr. Disrespect would be like front row for that stupidity, and making it, taking what could be a beautiful thing and a really important conversation as well. But yeah, now we can make gaming a conversation about sexual health and destigmatizing the conversations around safe sex, and making sure that people do understand that condoms. Yeah, they're buried in the back of most of your stores, your Walgreens or whatever, the bottom shelf by a way. Mm-hmm. But we got to remove that stigma to it. It can't just be the thing you got to go into the health office and grab 1 or 2 free ones where they're hidden away.
Excuse me. Menstruation products are with the diapers. So
are they really?
Yes.
I don't remember that. Huh.
Yeah.
Oh. Well.
But if anything, with that, it's also, we're also talking about now health and hygiene too, and that's something that sports really doesn't really talk about in general. Health and hygiene. So even if this is geared more toward the females, I'm still looking at this more. We're focusing on taking care of our bodies and being healthy. So I'm also looking at it from that angle.
Hey, that's pillar 3 of my why we do esports in schools: promote good mental and physical health. So hey, here we go, mental and physical health. All right. Well, it is 7:30, and do I want to put you? Danielle looks like she's going to pass out.
I am. I'm about to pass out.
Anybody? Just open up. I'm not going to put anybody on the spot. Does anybody have a final thought that they want to share this week, though?
Let's see.
I kind of use I'll use the Tampax one kind of as mine because I was really excited to talk about that. But I want to come back next week when, maybe Angelique and not that Danielle, you didn't do a fantastic job of carrying that conversation and educating the boys in the room. But I want to, I think Carrie and Angelique and even Sam might have some amazing thoughts on that. But does anybody have a final thought for this week?
I don't think I have a strong final thought. I just think that we're about to be in our last month of school.
God.
Yes, thank you, Jesus.
Remember, we should be thriving.
We should always be thriving, but don't try to reinvent the wheel. And so just listen, not just to your students, but please listen to your adult educators and staff members that are in the room. We are all tired and we are all stressed, and we just need to be heard. And please don't try anything that is astronomically new within this last month. Let's just ride the month out, rest for the summer to be prepared for whatever is going to come down in the new year. That's just all I got.
The only other thing I wanted to add is, I did not think I was going to like this generation of the Marvel series of things as much as I am, and it's important. It is
very good.
But you couldn't have jumped into this first. It had to be the Iron Mans, it had to be the Captain Americas, it had to be the Avenger movies. This is like, you fill the cup with all the rocks in and you fill in all the sand around it, and then whatever, however you do that. This is the same thing. The richness of the stories now, man, DC would wish to have something like this, but DC can't get their stuff together with Marvel. I really didn't think I was going to enjoy WandaVision. I didn't think I was going to enjoy Falcon Winter Soldier. If you haven't watched WandaVision, or if you're not watching, at least get to Falcon Winter Soldier. That one, there's a lot of parallels to our world. There's a lot of parallels to the things we're seeing day to day. It's a reflection of our society right now. Watch it. So
I agree with you 100%. I can't wait for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh, and Mortal Kombat's tomorrow too.
Oh yes, and that looks awesome. I love
Mortal
that.
Kombat
All right.
is tomorrow.
I got that the new one for Christmas.
Are
I'm
we good
terrible
then?
at it.
Danielle, anything?
I'm good.
All right. That'll do it for tonight. Thanks again, everybody. We'll be back next week. Take care.